Friends, because I look out and see you are all friends. Friends, I have no words. If we turn around, we can almost see Heaton Park Shul. We can almost see it, but we still can't get in, because the aftermath of the horror continues. I'm joined here by many dignitaries for whose presence we are very, very grateful. But I just want to introduce you, first of all, to the young people who are standing here with me. To the Finley family, to Yoni's kids. One of the people, one of the heroes of the Heaton Park Shul community, who is today in hospital recovering from terrible wounds. Together with Andrew, who blocked the terrorists with his body, and together with Bernard, who did the same. And so I want to begin with prayers for them, as is traditional. If you can, please join with me. Shir Lamalois, Esainai El Hehorim, Meayin Yovo Yezri. Ezri Meim Adonai, Oisei Shomayim Voretz. Al Yitain Lamoit Raglecha, Al Yonum Shemrecha. Hine la Yonum v'la Yishon Shome Yisrael. Adonai Shemrecha, Adonai Tilcha, Al Yad Yeminecha. Yoimam Hashemesh lo yakekov yoreach balayla. Adonai yishmocha mikora yishmer es nafshecha. Adonai yishmer tzezcha uvoyecha me'ata v'ad olam. Friends, we pray for the injured and for all those of our community and beyond who are suffering from this heinous event. And we also remember Adrian and Melvin, two truly wonderful, special men whose lives were so truly snatched from them as they tried to pray as Jews on the holiest day of the year, on Yom Kippur. I'm going to recite for them the memorial prayer. El molei rachamim shoichein b'meroimim hamtzei menucha nechain al kanfei shechina b'malois kadoshim u'tahirim kezoya harakia mazhirim Es Nishmois Avraham Yaakov ben David ben Sion V'mei Eliezer ben Binyamin Sholchu L'Olamam Bavo Shonu Mispalim B'Razkos Nishmosam B'Gan Eden Tei Menuchasam Lochein Balarachamim Yasrei Mitez Kanafav L'Olamim V'Yitzoi B'Tzachaimis Nishmosehem Adonai Unachlasam V'Yanuchu B'Shalom Mishkavam V'Noimar Amen. Please now join me in a moment of silence. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, Shlach, Refuah Shalem, Malachayle Amecha. Send a complete recovery to those unwell. Yehei, Zichram, Baruch, may their memory be for a blessing. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Addlestone, OBE, the Chairman of the JRC.
Thank you, Rabbi Daniel. I can't imagine how you're feeling, what that was like, and what you've gone through. So, ladies and gentlemen, like you, I'm still shell-shocked by what happened yesterday, but as chair of the Jewish Representative Council, I know that our community is looking for two things: leadership and hope. So we are blessed to have various MPs and civic dignitaries here, and in particular, I want to highlight Minister Alex Davis-Jones. Thank you so much for being with us, and many of you. Thank you to Keith Black and Louise Jacobs from the JLC and Phil Rosenberg from the Board of Deputies for joining us again from London and giving us your support. We grieve for the losses of Adrian and Melvin, and we pray for the recovery of Yoni and Andrew and Bernard. We feel the comfort and the support of the wider non-Jewish world. We know that the silent majority is throwing its arms around us in sympathy and in support. Greater Manchester Police and the emergency services have been outstanding. Our civic leaders, yes, thank you. I see our chief over here. Thank you for being with us, Chief Constable Sir Stephen Watson. Our civic leaders and politicians have been incredibly supportive, as evidenced by the turnout today. And we really do appreciate this support. It gives us strength. And yet, there is so much more that needs to be done if the deaths of these two poor souls are to mean anything. Change needs to happen. And I see right in front of me a sign saying, "No more words, we demand action." So our challenge to, and our demand of, our political leaders, including the Deputy Prime Minister, who is here with us today, is to stop this hateful narrative, to stem this at its rotten core. The conflation of anti-Zionism and Jew hatred cannot be allowed to continue. No longer can people claim to be anti-Zionist and yet not Jew haters. We can no longer appease the extremists in this country, especially those of the far left and radical Islamists. We have to stop the Palestinian marches being a glorification of the death of Jews. As it was yesterday, unbelievable, on the day of those two deaths. Now, half of the marchers are certainly marching for humanitarian reasons, but half are not. And we need to focus on the half that are not. We have to ban the phrase, globalize the Intifada. We have to tackle those people who are teaching and spreading hatred in places of worship. We have to tackle the university campuses and the NHS, where Jewish students and workers and patients are made to feel vulnerable by there being a proliferation of pro-Palestinian badges. We have to root out the evil ideology, but not with hatred, not hatred from our side. Words matter. Words lead to hate, and hate leads to the tragedy we endured yesterday. We cannot continue to allow a war being waged over 2,500 miles away to bleed onto our streets. We look to our politicians to make diversity beautiful by insisting on real integration, where communities contribute to the overall good of the country and don't continue to look inwardly, staying rooted within their own narrow worlds. We are proud British Mancunian Jews who have contributed to this country for over 150 years. We love Manchester, and we love this country, and we proudly wave the Union Jack. Are those who are against us also proud of being British? Which flag do they wave? This is our challenge to our political leaders who are here on the stage with us today. So therefore, I have great pleasure in introducing our Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy. And before I do, please, we know how we all feel. We know how we all feel.
Children's school was closed today. You have allowed this to happen. David Lammy, you have allowed this to happen. You are all guilty of it all. You have allowed Jew hatred in Manchester on the street. You have allowed it. You are all guilty. We do not want you speaking here today. You do not speak for us. Do not speak in the circles. We do not want you speaking. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Anti-word.
Okay, all right, we've heard enough. We've heard enough. We've heard enough. We know how you feel. I know how I feel. Let's give the time for our Deputy Prime Minister to address us. David Lammy.
Friends, we must stand together today. We must stand in grief, in solidarity and in defiance. Grief for the innocent lives that were taken so cruelly, senseless murders carried out on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish year. Grief that causes so much pain and so much suffering. Today, our hearts, our thoughts, our prayers must be with the families and those who were killed. And of course with this community, this Jewish community, both here in Manchester and at Heaton Park Synagogue. Right across our nation, and as the Member of Parliament for Tottenham, I know the suffering in Crumpsall is the same as the pain, the worry and the frightened faces in my own constituency and in the area of Stamford Hill, one of the historic homes of the Jewish community in this country. In that sense, London and Manchester are twin communities, grieving as one, and the whole nation is with them. That's why we stand in solidarity with the Jewish people, because an attack like this is never felt alone. Wherever you are in our country, Jewish people, our friends, our neighbours, our loved ones, are terrified by the events of yesterday, of becoming targets, victims of anti-Semitic hate, simply for who they are. But I know this about Britain's Jewish community, a community I have known all of my life. You are strong, you are resilient, and you will never be cowed. And that's what I want you to know today, that our country, those of all colours, all faiths and none, stand with you. We stand with you against terrorism. We stand with you against those who think bombs and blasts will break us. We stand against all those who would minimise or coddle or obfuscate on anti-Jewish hate. We know terrorism in this country. We know it, of course, in this city. We saw it at the arena. And we have seen it in Heaton Park. We all know terrorism. We all feel terrorism. My best friend from childhood, James Adams, was blown to smithereens in the 7/7 bombings. And I vow to you, every Christian, every Muslim, every Jew, every Mancunian, every Brit, we will never stop fighting it. That is why we stand in defiance of those terrorists who seek to divide us, who want to pit neighbour against neighbour, to weaken the bonds that bind us together as one nation, one people, one united kingdom.
Please, let the Deputy Prime Minister speak, please. Please.
We cannot, we must not let them divide us. We must show them who we really are, not what they want us to become or to believe, but Britain's true nature, a tolerant nation built on mutual respect, common understanding, where people live not in fear. But in freedom, that is who we are. That is who we will always be. And it cannot be eroded by violence. It cannot be erased by vile acts, such as those carried out here yesterday. I want to close with this thought. When I have lost loved ones in the past, Jewish friends have often used a phrase to comfort me. May their memory be a blessing. Nothing will ever take away the pain of what happened here, but how we respond now, how we stand together, yes, in grief and in solidarity, but also in defiance and a shared mission against terror in the name of us all. That response honours those we have lost. May their memory be a blessing, not just to their families, not just to the Jewish community, but to our entire nation always. And for those that are considering marching over the weekend, I ask them to reflect with all human dignity, grace and understanding, and to stop and to stand back. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is the leader of Manchester City Council, Bev Craig.
Friends, I'm not going to stand here with our Mayor of Greater Manchester and speak at length with empty words. I just want you to know this. What we saw yesterday, an attack on the streets of our city that attacked Jews for being Jews on the holiest day, we will fight that and we will stand against that. And I need you to know our thoughts are with those that have lost loved ones, those that have been injured, their family, their friends and their community. We will take from this the strength that we hear in front of us today, but know this, and this is an important and powerful message about our city. Our city has been made great by the generations that have built the Manchester that we know and we love today. Our Jewish residents, over generations, have built this city that we see. An attack on you is an attack on all of us, and we will not stand for it. We must change. We must do differently. So here today, not just words, but a commitment to action. We will be open to meeting with every single one of you that wants to hear from us. We were here to listen. We're not here to lecture. This is about our city healing. This is about us saying a terrorist attack on the streets of Manchester attacks us all. It attacks our diversity, it attacks our democracy, and it attacks who we are as a very essence. We stand with you, we love you, we support you, and we want to hear from you. So that's all that I have to say today, but thank you for coming today in the rain.
This was an appalling anti-Semitic attack on our Jewish friends and neighbours, and we are here today because, as Bev said, we care about you, we love you, we value what you have given to Greater Manchester over the years. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. That is the permanent principle, the firm foundation on which this city region has been built by you, by us, by everyone here over centuries. That is who we are. And we will not let this break us in any way, shape or form. I salute the strength of our Jewish community. I visit the Jewish community with colleagues behind me.
Excuse me. Thank you.
I salute the power of all of your community organisations. And let me say something about the Community Security Trust. The people who mobilised yesterday morning, the minute the call came. Those who stood there behind the door, preventing what could have been something much worse. A community that is strong and supports each other, that has each other's backs. But can I say to you, we have your back too. That is us. That is Greater Manchester, and will always be that way. But we also should say thank you today to our emergency services who are there in your hour of need, in our hour of need. The fire service who were on site and supported, the ambulance service, but of course Greater Manchester Police, whose officers showed exemplary courage in dealing with the situation before them. And I would like you actually to now welcome the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, who leads our police force so brilliantly, to address you all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It is, for me and all of my officers, a source of profound regret that once again, in the immediate aftermath of yet another anti-Semitic terrorist atrocity on our streets, that we come together to stand in solidarity with those who mourn. I can pledge to you that GMP are with you as one in continuing relentlessly, professionally, ruthlessly, all of those who would harm our Jewish community and other communities across Greater Manchester, where hate is the originator of their intent. I echo the Mayor's, I think, very justified praise of the CST, who are a brilliant example and I reference the CST specifically because they are the embodiment of our mutual determination to keep our communities safe, and for you to have your absolute God-given right to live your Jewish lives as you are entitled to do in our country. And lastly, I too would reflect upon the fact that we, in mourning those who have lost their lives, are literally reflecting upon people who gave their lives in the very act of protecting the lives of others. There can be no greater sacrifice, and our thoughts and prayers are with them, their families, and all of you. God bless you.
Thank you. For me, it was as an 11-year-old schoolboy in Manchester, I discovered that the Jewish boys in my class, who were probably about between 10 and 20% of us, were just the same as me. The only main difference was that on a Friday afternoon in winter, they got to miss the last lesson and go home early. I learned then that the common humanity that binds us together is more important than any differences that we have, and I've sought to live that out ever since, not least in my 12 years now as Bishop of Manchester. Today, the heavens are weeping with us, typical Manchester weather, and we, whatever background we come from, whatever faith we represent or none, we too are weeping with our Jewish sisters and our Jewish brothers. And we do pledge ourselves to action, and that action will often be quite small actions, just the way we put our arms around each other, just the way we greet each other, just the way we take the effort to understand each other's lives and to respect each other's traditions. Those are the small acts of love that matter, because, as I've said so many times over this last 24 hours, hate will never defeat hate. Only love will defeat hate. That's what I pledge myself to today. That's what I know the faith communities of Greater Manchester pledge themselves there to. I hope that we all pledge ourselves to that as well today. God bless you all.
Thank you, Bishop. I want to add my thanks to the thanks that have already been given. Thanks on behalf of our community, the Heaton Parkshire community, and all the wider Jewish community. I want to say thank you again to those special and heroic men who stopped that terrorist getting into my shul and stopped much worse things happening. I want to say thank you to the emergency services, first of all to the police, who came to our aid in the time of our greatest need, who were there for us, for the fire service, for the ambulance service, those who tended to the wounded, to all those who have helped us and supported us through this most terrible and darkest of times. I want to say thank you to all of the dignitaries here and all of their kind words, and I want to say thank you to you, to all of you who have come out today to show your support. Thank you from the very bottom of the Heaton Parkshire heart. as Bishop Walker said, the skies are weeping, and right they may. Because yesterday, evil and darkness stalked the roads of Manchester, stalked the steps of my shul, and brought death and sorrow and injury. And that demands a response. It demands a political response and a practical response. But I think it demands, as Bishop Walker said, a spiritual response as well. My friends, my community members, Adrian and Melvin, died as Jews, for being Jews. And so I beg all of the Jewish community here to please strengthen not the opposite, but strengthen your lives as Jews. The only way to defeat darkness, the only way to defeat unholiness is with goodness. I beg you today, Erev Shabbos, to please give a little bit of charity, to make sure you light Shabbos candles, and perhaps most significantly, that murderer tried to shut down our shul. He shut down the shul building, but he didn't shut down our prayers. We did all the prayers of Yom Kippur, and we continued this morning with Shachris, and we're going to continue over Shabbos, because he will not stop us from connecting to our Father in heaven. And so I ask you, please, daven, go to shul, show your strength and your pride, and let us show that we are not cowed. As Jews, we always rebuild, we always recover, we always return stronger, and that is what we will do. And to all of our friends, all of our non-Jewish friends here of all faiths and none, I thank you on behalf of all of our community for your support at this most critical of times. We needed your warm embrace, and we're grateful for it, because we know we are not alone. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Wish you a good Shabbos and a Shabbat Shalom, a peaceful Shabbos for you and your families, for all of Am Yisrael, and indeed for all of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes the service.
You may remain seated until I say otherwise. My sentencing remarks will take a little while because I must explain what the sentence is and the reasons for it. These remarks are written and will be given to you and your lawyers after I pass sentence, so that anything you may not follow now can be explained to you after the hearing. Finally, I would ask that there is silence throughout my sentencing remarks so that everyone in court can hear and follow what is being said. On the 12th of June of 2025, you pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of Freddie Rivero. That offence was committed on the 27th of February of this year. Sentence was adjourned for the preparation of sentencing notes and reports, and I've been greatly assisted by these documents and by the helpful submissions of counsel today. Freddie Rivero was 75 years old at the time of his death. His daughter read a very moving victim personal statement during the sentence hearing today. She told the court that her father had many serious health problems, but he seldom spoke about his illnesses and pain. Instead, he retained his kind, polite, gentle, and friendly manner. He was a loving and supportive father, a loyal friend who was wise but humble, and a central part of her life. He had friends from many walks of life, including his former work life and in the local community. Those who knew him and cared about him have expressed their sadness and shock at his violent death. It is clear from everything I've heard that Freddie Rivero was a thoroughly decent person who was very much loved. He is greatly missed by his family and friends, and I'm conscious that no sentence imposed today could compensate them for their loss. I turn to the facts of the case. At around 11:15 p.m. on the 27th of February of this year, Freddie Rivero was standing close to a bus stop on the Seven Sisters Road. He had been out with a friend that evening, and when they parted company, he seemed to be in good spirits. The three of you got off a bus at that stop. You had been socialising together in the lead up to the offence and had been sharing a bottle of vodka. The CCTV footage of your movements before the incident show that you were all very intoxicated. When you got off the bus, you were unsteady on your feet. You, D3, were still carrying the partly consumed bottle of vodka. As the three of you walked past Mr. Rivero, you, D2, made deliberate physical contact with his shoulder and said something to him. You were initially pulled away by D1, and the three of you walked away, but you returned almost immediately. I am entirely satisfied that Freddie Rivero did not say or do anything to provoke the attack that was to follow. In fact, he raised his hands and made peace gestures towards you before you approached him to carry out the attack. You, D1, pushed Mr. Rivero towards the shutters of a shop. D2, you were filming the incident on your mobile phone, and you pulled Mr. Rivero's glasses from his face. He managed to get them back, but was then surrounded by all three of you. D3, you pushed Mr. Rivero backwards. All three of you kept advancing on him as he continued to move away in an effort to escape from you. He was pushed by D1 and kicked by D2, who also struck out at him while still filming the events on the mobile telephone. D3, you put an arm up to prevent a member of the public from intervening. You were handed D1's bag and D2's phone. They were freeing up their hands to carry on the assault. As D2 handed you the phone, she could be heard telling you to record it, and you took over filming the incident. The footage was later recovered from D2's telephone. You can all be heard shouting at Mr. Rivero as he desperately tried to get away from you. You, D1, accused him of trying to talk to D2. There was nothing to justify your comments or your violence, and unsurprisingly, he was confused and terrified by your behaviour. He told you more than once that he wanted to go home, but you ignored his pleas. D1, you then threw a punch which caused Mr. Rivero to fall backwards onto the floor and strike his head. He fell unconscious immediately and was obviously very seriously injured. D1, you ran into McDonald's to get help. When you returned, you put your jacket under Mr. Rivero's head in a futile effort to assist him, but you later retrieved it. You called 999 within a very short time of the incident. Passers-by became involved in efforts to help Mr. Rivero. D1, you made comments to the effect that he had behaved inappropriately towards you. These were lies told by you to deflect blame onto Mr. Rivero as he lay there fatally injured. D3, immediately after Mr. Rivero fell to the floor, you were heard on the mobile phone footage shouting at the other two to leave. You all left the scene before the emergency services arrived. The ambulance service found Mr. Rivero lying on the pavement with a severe head injury. He was given treatment at the scene and then taken to the Royal London Hospital in a critical condition. He died from his injuries the following afternoon. A post-mortem was later carried out, and Mr. Rivero was found to have injuries to his head and brain consistent with striking his head on the floor. The cause of death was head injury. Within a short time of the assault, police officers found you, D2 and D3, near to the Seven Sisters Road. You both ran away when you were approached, but were detained soon afterwards. You both told police that D1 had punched Mr. Rivero, causing him to fall, and you both denied having anything to do with the assault. You lied to hide your involvement in it. D2, you said that it was Mr. Rivero's fault. You said he started on us. D1 pushed him and he lost his balance and fell. You said that you would kill yourself if he died and that you would pray for him and that he did not deserve to die. D1, you were arrested shortly after midnight on the same night. You told police that you were just helping your friends. You said that they were drunk and were getting rude to Mr. Rivero, that he came towards you and you punched him. You said that you hoped he was okay and that no one deserved to die. You said that you didn't mean to do any of this. You were each interviewed on the 28th of February. D1, you made no comment in answer to all questions. During the interview, when you were further arrested for murder, you said that you were devastated that Mr. Rivero had passed away. D2, at the police station, and before your interview, you described the events. You claimed that Mr. Rivero had been rude to your group and that you were all drunk and loud. You described D1 pushing Mr. Rivero, him going to the floor and hitting his head. You made no comment in interview but provided a prepared statement. You gave a brief account of events, including the fact that you had seen a verbal altercation and the victim hit his head on the floor. You denied being involved in the altercation or any assault. D3, you answered no comment to all questions. Turning to your backgrounds, assault on the homeless woman was recovered from D2's mobile telephone when it was seized on arrest, as was the video of the fatal assault on Mr. Rivero. However, there were several other videos of violent incidents. I have viewed them all. Those incidents of violence are not as serious as the attack on Mr. Rivero or indeed the assault on the homeless woman. However, they present an alarming picture, a pattern of unacceptable violence used by all three of you. Turning to the Sentencing Council guidelines, your youth and immaturity are the central feature for me to consider in deciding your sentence. I have applied the Sentencing Council's Sentencing Children and Young People guideline. I've also considered the relevant case law, in particular the recent authority of the Crown against ZA. I must and will take an individualistic approach to sentence. I've kept in mind the objectives in sentencing young defendants, particularly your welfare and rehabilitation. Custody is a measure of last resort, but this case clearly crosses the custody threshold, and I'm satisfied that only a custodial sentence is appropriate. I've specifically considered the question of whether a youth rehabilitation order with intensive supervision and surveillance could be imposed. But in my view, this offence is so serious that it must be dealt with by way of a custodial sentence. I will impose the least sentence possible, given the seriousness of the offence. The youth guidelines state, at paragraph 6.46, that the court may feel it appropriate when sentencing defendants aged 15 to 17 to impose a sentence of 1/2 to 2/3 of the adult sentence, with a greater reduction for those aged under 15. I will apply that guidance. I have considered the Sentencing Council's definitive guidelines on unlawful act manslaughter. These guidelines apply to adults, as there are no youth-specific guidelines for this offence. Having carefully listened to all that has been said, I'm of the view that this case falls into Category C, because death was caused in the course of an unlawful act, which involved an intention by each of you to cause harm that falls between high and lower culpability. I do not accept the prosecution's submission that D1's case falls into Category B. I am not satisfied on the evidence that the intention was to cause harm falling just short of grievous bodily harm, that is really serious bodily harm. Nor could it be said that death was caused in the course of an unlawful act that carried a high risk of death or grievous bodily harm, which was or ought to have been obvious to you. I've viewed the footage multiple times, including the single punch shown from more than one angle. I've reminded myself of the pathological evidence. I've also reminded myself of the comments you made at the time, as your reaction and actions immediately after the event. The evidence supports the finding that the case falls into Category C and not Category B. Neither does the case fall into Category D. It cannot be said that there was no intention to cause any harm and no obvious risk of anything more than minor harm. None of you played a minor role, and your responsibility is not substantially reduced by mental disorder, learning disability, or lack of maturity, although I will take your immaturity into account at a later stage. The starting point for a Category C offence for an adult offender aged 18 or over is 6 years custody, with a category range of 3 to 9 years custody. The offence is made more serious, that is aggravated, by the following factors: your history of violence, as revealed in the videos recovered from the phone. This is part of a pattern of violent offending. D2 and D3, you have previous convictions for violence. The victim was particularly vulnerable by virtue of his age and his physical ill health. This was a group attack. D1, you were the principal offender. You threw the fatal punch, although D2 and D3 were actively involved throughout the attack. Mr. Rivera was subjected to degradation before the fatal punch, including the filming of the attack, the removal of his glasses, being verbally abused and being kicked once and pushed. The offence took place at night and in the presence of others. The offence was committed when you were under the influence of alcohol. Substance misuse, particularly alcohol, has been a feature in your lives, although I note that you've each been addressing this issue whilst in youth detention. In your case, D3, the offence was committed whilst you were subject to a referral order. The offence is made less serious, that is mitigated, by the following factors: your youth and immaturity. The offence was not premeditated. D1, you have no convictions or cautions recorded against you. You are from difficult backgrounds. I have considered all the material in the psychological reports and, in your case, D1, the psychiatric reports. You've each been through extremely traumatic events, during your childhood and adolescence, including being victims of abuse and exploitation. You are all subject to full care orders, which gives some indication of the difficulties you have faced, but by no means the full extent of them. I note that each of you has a very low IQ. I accept that your traumatic experiences and backgrounds will have impacted on your development. D1, you made attempts to assist Mr. Rivero. You went to get help and called 999. You expressed genuine remorse for your actions in the immediate aftermath of the incident, in your interactions with the police and in your interview. D2 and D3, you have also expressed remorse for your actions. D3, you were not the instigator or main offender in the attack, but your role cannot properly be described as minimal. I turn now to the sentence. This was a cruel attack on an elderly man. He was completely defenceless, and you showed him no mercy. The nature of the attack itself and Mr. Rivero's age and vulnerability make this a particularly serious offence. D1, you are the oldest of the three defendants and you delivered the fatal punch, but you have no previous convictions or cautions. The videos on the phone, however, make it clear that you have been violent in the past. In your favour, you have shown genuine remorse, not simply in the letters written to the court and to Mr. Rivero's family, but in your actions and comments soon after the event. The references from your teacher and the substance misuse professional both make clear that you are committed to making a change in your life. I also accept that you have faced significant challenges in your life. Your intellectual functioning is in the borderline range for learning disability. Indeed, that feature applies to all three of you, and I won't repeat it. You, D1, have been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I've considered the Sentencing Council's guidance on sentencing offenders with mental disorders, developmental disorders, or neurological impairments. I'm not satisfied that you suffer from a disorder which impacts on your culpability, but it will affect your experience of custody and is a mitigating factor. If you were being dealt with as an adult after trial, the nature and number of aggravating factors, including your role in the offence, would take this offence above the top of the category range for Category C. However, bearing in mind the mitigating factors, the right sentence for an adult offender after trial would be 8 years custody. Applying the relevant guidelines, I will reduce that by 1/3 given your age and immaturity, and further reduce it for your guilty plea. D2, you did not deliver the fatal blow, but having viewed the footage many times, I'm satisfied that you played a significant role. You made the initial physical contact with Mr. Rivero. You fully participated in the attack. You kicked him and kept him from getting away, and you filmed the events on your mobile phone, handing it over to D3 so that she could carry on filming while you continued the attack on Mr. Rivero. You have previous convictions, and the videos on your phone show other instances of your past violence, all recorded. I accept that you have expressed remorse. I've considered the letter which was read out in court this afternoon. You have had a difficult upbringing, and you suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of your past. These factors do not reduce your culpability, but they are mitigating factors. I also take into account the fact that you are making progress with your rehabilitation. The aggravating factors would take your case towards the top of the category range. The mitigating factors would reduce it, so that for an adult offender in your position, the right sentence after trial would be 7 years custody. I will reduce that by approximately 1/3 given your age and immaturity, and I will further reduce it for your guilty plea. D3, you were 14 years old at the time of the incident, but just 2 weeks off your 15th birthday. You did not play a minimal role. You advanced on Mr. Rivero with your co-defendants and you pushed him. You put an arm out to stop a passerby from intervening to help him. You ensured that he could not escape from your group. When you were handed the mobile telephone, you continued filming right up to and including the fatal punch which floored Mr. Rivero. You've been previously convicted of a very serious offence for which you were made the subject of a referral order. That is especially concerning given how young you are. I have the power to re-sentence you for that offence, but I will instead treat it as a serious aggravating factor. I've read your letter and I accept that you have expressed remorse. You too have had a difficult upbringing and you are now engaging positively with those responsible for your rehabilitation. It is likely that you have ADHD, although there is no formal diagnosis. There have been concerns about your mental health. In my assessment, these factors do not significantly impact on your culpability, although I take them into account in mitigation. Although your role was not as significant as that of D2, in your case, the offence is aggravated by the attempted grievous bodily harm. The aggravating factors would take this towards the top of the category range. With the mitigating factors, the sentence in your case for an adult offender after trial would be 7 years custody. The appropriate reduction to reflect your age and immaturity is approximately 1/2. The sentence will also be reduced for your guilty plea. In each case, I will impose a custodial sentence pursuant to Section 250 of the Sentencing Act 2020. I should make clear that I've given very careful consideration to the dangerousness provisions. I note all that is said in the pre-sentence reports, including the assessments as to your future risk. The authors of the structured assessment of risk and violence in youth assess the overall risk of harm as moderate in each of your cases, although that reflects the risk whilst you're in custody and have your liberty restricted. In your case, D1, I have the benefit of a report from Dr. Hales, who considers that your current risk to others in the community is moderate, but with the interventions and support recommended, and as you mature and are less impulsive and prone to the influence of your peers, that will decrease to low risk. I note that you have all been engaging positively with professionals whilst in custody and have been addressing the factors which led to your offending so that the risk you pose on release is significantly reduced. I'm not satisfied that the test for dangerousness is met. In any event, an extended sentence would not be available for D2 and D3 because your sentences fall below 4 years. This has been a complex sentencing task because offences of manslaughter are committed in a wide range of circumstances and sentencing is highly fact-specific. The needless death of an elderly family man is heartbreaking for the family and understandably will have provoked feelings of outrage within the community. Sadly, there is no sentence that could overcome those feelings. I have focused on your welfare and future rehabilitation. It is not only in your interests, but in the interests of wider society that you should in the future be capable of leading useful and law-abiding lives. The information before the court gives hope that this is possible. Stand up, please. D1, the sentence in your case will be 4 years detention. D2, the sentence in your case will be 3.5 years detention. D3, the sentence in your case will be 2.5 years detention. You will be released on licence no later than halfway through your sentence. Upon your release, you must each comply with the conditions of your licence. If you do not do so, you will be liable to be recalled to serve the remainder of your sentence in detention. In each of your cases, the time spent on remand will automatically count towards your sentence, and the victim surcharge applies, and an appropriate order will be drawn up.